Hi, this is LeAura Alderson with My Trainer Fitness, and our guest today is a credentialed and registered dietitian, a certified dietitian nutritionist, and a certified nutrition specialist, and a license of the American College of Nutrition. She's also a wife, mother to a wonderful boy, friend, avid reader, networker, photographer, humorist, hunter-gatherer, clinical and holistic dietitian with 20 plus years of experience. I don't think that's true. She doesn't look that old. Best-selling author of Eat, Drink, and Be Gorgeous, Secrets of Gorgeous, the Eat, Drink, and Be Gorgeous Project, and Cave Women Don't Get Fat. Welcome our guest today, Esther Blum.
Thanks for having me today, LeAura.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us. I know you have a crazy busy schedule. People with being such a successful published author, a lot of people demanding your time and a lot of free advice. So I really appreciate you taking the time in your schedule to share some of your story and your knowledge and wisdom with us.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's such a confusing topic today, I think, nutrition. And so perhaps we could just start a little bit by, you've been in the industry for a long time and you've had your ups and downs and you've had your own ailments and nutritional and health challenges, significant ones. Is that when you started your journey into nutritional education, or did it start before that?
Yeah, not at all. It was so interesting, when I got into nutrition at the undergraduate, but especially at the graduate level, like people had these really deep-seated reasons for going into nutrition. I mean, I remember there was a recovering anorexic woman in my grad school program who would walk around the class with an IV pole with parenteral nutrition dripping into her arm, and she was clearly trying to heal herself. There were other people that were trying to build private practices. I grew up in a very medical family. My grandfather and father were both physicians. My mother was a nurse. My cousins and uncles were all pharmacists. And my grandmother was a dietitian trained anesthesiologist by my grandfather. And the two of them took my tonsils out in my grandfather's OR in his Brooklyn home. He was the tonsil king of Brooklyn, Harry Blum. So I was always very interested in the sciences. And my father, my grandfather kept saying to me, you have to be a doctor. You have to be a doctor. And my father said, hey, he pushed me into it. I'm not going to do the same thing for you. And, the hospital is a very jealous mistress. Yes. And you don't have balance in your life. And, long before my mantra verbally became balance, I knew in my heart I did not want to go to medical school, but I did like the science requirements. And I really sucked at physics, and nutrition was a degree where you needed very little physics compared to like a pre-med degree. So nutrition, it's basically a pre-med degree with 1 semester less of organic and inorganic chemistry and less physics, but everything else is the same. So heavy in the sciences and chemistry, it was a real struggle for me until I hit grad school and everything kind of clicked. So I had 2 degrees in clinical nutrition. I worked in hospitals for 5 years. I was at Boston City for a year. I was at Beth Israel in Manhattan for 4.5 years. And I was at a cocktail party one night, and my mother at my parents' house, and my mother's friend said to me, hey, what do you know about vitamins? And I said, I'm so embarrassed. I have 2 degrees and I really know nothing about vitamins, because the one course I took called Vitamins and Minerals, the teacher literally said, everything you need you get from food. And I was like, that is a waste of my money. I put myself through grad school. So I was like, seriously? So she said, I have a trainer who did this amazing nutrition program, and it was more holistic. And at the time, since I put myself through grad school, my grandfather would occasionally write me checks and say, put this towards your loan. So talk about manifesting your dreams, right? I took a course with Designs for Health, and it was led by 2 nutritionists, Robert Cran and Linda Lazat. And the tuition was $2,000 for a 4-month program where we met every other Saturday for 8 hours. So it was $2,000. And literally that week, my grandfather had handed me a check for $2,000. And I said, can I please parlay this into yet more education? And he said, sure, go for it. So even though he told me, he said, I don't know why you're a dietitian. You are never going to make any money and you're never going to be a success. So was my second lesson, which is to say, success is the greatest revenge. And
Yes.
I'm sure he is quite content in his grave, where he passed away at 105 and a half and was fully lucid and with
Whoa.
it.
That's good genes.
Yeah. I mean, it's the big, I joke, it's like the big F you to the naysayers, right? Like, that is really what drives me internally, is to not be a passive person. My father passively went to medical school because his father wanted him to. And I said, my whole life is a big reaction. That will never be my life. So, the desire to help people, I don't talk about this on my website, but I have two older brothers, and one of them was born with a mild case of spina bifida and really has struggled his whole life with health issues. He's in a wheelchair now. And, you carry around this tremendous guilt your whole life, like survivor's guilt. Like, why, my other brother and I say, why is this poor guy born with a black cloud over his head and we are fine, we are healthy? So it's helped me help other people. It's inspired me to heal other people. After my son was born, I unknowingly blew up. I had dormant Epstein-Barr virus in my system, and it took me about 7 to 7.5 years to find a practitioner who got it. So I went from practitioner to practitioner with insomnia. That was my big symptom. I breastfed myself.
Sorry, I just didn't know it could last that long.
Oh, it will go on. I mean, Epstein-Barr is really, really tough to completely eradicate. Right now, my viral load is showing past infection, but I haven't totally cleared it out. And so my sleep is 1,000 times better, but my gut, it leaves behind all of these parasites, and I still have metals and yeast. I'm still working on it. It's like the biggest pain in the ass. So I was at the gym this morning, and the owner said, he's like, you look like you've lost weight. And I've definitely lost body fat since I've been sleeping. Holler. But I was like, dude, I said, I still have like gut issues. And he was like, you'll totally figure it out. This is your business. I said, of course I will. But it's a path, and it's made me really, I consider myself an empathic and empowering healer, but this, like, holy cow, to write books, to raise a family, and to work and counsel people on no sleep. Holy cow. Like, I am a strong warrior, because not sleeping, I mean, there's a reason why it's used as a form of torture in, in prison camps. It does such a number on your body and your psyche. So.
It does. And I mean, the thing that amazed me in just reading your story online and on your site, which I know hopefully people will go to, because there's so much wealth of knowledge through the story that you convey. And plus your writing is really fun on your blog. But it just struck me that, I mean, how old are you? Can I ask how old you are?
I am turning 45.
Oh my gosh. I was guessing maybe she's 35.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And somebody else said that on your Twitter today. I saw that. And your son is 8, right?
Wait, what did someone say on my Twitter?
Beautiful skin. I think it was maybe.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yeah.
It was on your Facebook video. Somebody said.
Oh, yeah. Well, I do eat clean. I mean, I do walk the walk. So if I don't look the part, I'm in deep trouble.
Right. And your son is 8, right?
Yeah, he's almost 8.5 now. Yeah.
So what struck me though, back to what I was going to say, is just how much you were accomplishing, writing the books, running the practice, being a mom in life, and during all this time. I mean, that's tremendous accomplishment.
Thank you, LeAura. Well, you know what the thing is I spent the first, and really I credit my husband for sticking with me, because I was no prize on no sleep for years. And, we're both post-traumatic about it and healing from it. But, what's interesting to me is, the first couple years were just pity party and exhaustion and depression and anxiety. And then one day, he got so pissed at me, and he was like, just do something about it already. And that was a real turning point. And I was like, you know what? I just have to shut up and move on and accept what I'm dealing with and move on and trust that one day it will get better. So it was a lot of gritting my teeth and just not complaining and moving forth with my day. And I gave myself room. If I was up all night and needed to take a nap or miss a workout, so be it. Like, I really was brought to my knees and completely humbled by this traumatic health event. And it's restored my faith and healed me, knowing that I could recover from that. And could bounce back from something so horrific. And it also showed me that the body is just this incredibly miraculous, resilient machine. And, I don't have the body I did, before I gave birth, but it's pretty damn close. And considering all I've been through, I'm just grateful that like I can move, I can lift heavy weights, I can sleep at night. I am so crystal clear on just how the little things in life, like for my birthday, right? My 40th birthday, I'm going to compare the two. My 40th birthday, I had, a party in New York City, the back room in a restaurant with just a couple of really close friends, very intimate setting, waiter service, the whole 9 yards. This birthday, my son was like, Mom, I just want to make you a salad for lunch. I'm like, bring it. Or like, just going to have a couple friends over. We all have August birthdays, and we're just going to have some cake and cocktails and dinner. And like, I don't want any of the bells and whistles, it's just like, holy cow, this is just enough. And so, it's very emotional because you don't think you're ever going to get your life back. So when you do, you're just grateful and humble and so incredibly grounded.
Yeah, there's so much in what you just said, and it really brings back to mind when we get busy and caught up, it's so easy to take for granted so many things. I remember when you're familiar with Jill Coleman and
she's so dear to me.
And Jay Tita. And so when I first started my exercise journey, actually, I had already started exercising at home to DVDs and that sort of thing, but I knew I needed resistance training because I had osteopenia, the precursor to osteoporosis, and so I needed to rev it up, and I started doing metabolic effect exercises outdoors in 6:30 in the morning class with them, and I was probably around 48 at the time. That's so it's about, I'm 56 now, so actually probably was around 50. I was like right approaching 50, 59, 49, something like that. Anyway, I remember, so it's high intensity, right? And so 20 minutes of powering out, and I remember sprinting and thinking, I don't know. I don't even know why I'm out here doing this. I'm exhausted. This is ridiculous. Why am I out here? And then right around that time, the sun broke. It was dawn, and so the dawn was breaking. And then I remember just saying, I've just got to shift this to, wow, thank God I can. Thank goodness I can be out here, that I can actually run, that I can get myself to the exercise. So what am I moaning about? I'm just so grateful that I can do it. Okay, if I need to rest, I rest. But, it's wonderful. So back to what you're saying, just taking the simple. And so the other thing, when you were mentioning the salad, that your son bringing you a salad, a lot of people get frustrated about traveling, especially if they have eating problems, sensitivities, allergies, need to worry about weight loss. That's sort of like the paradox, right? Is when it comes vacation time, I think so many of us worry about, we're going to go have fun and I'm going to worry every day about my weight, right? It's like, okay, the juxtaposition of every time I, go and enjoy a meal, I'm going to feel heavier. I'm not going to feel good in my body. And so I do have allergies, a lot of soy allergies, and, soy's in everything, and soy's in every oil that every restaurant uses. But what I started realizing is, instead of bemoaning what I cannot have, I'm just really grateful to go to a restaurant and have someone else prepare a salad for me and deliver it to me. Great, it's sort of like, okay, so it's just shifting. It's shifting mindset.
Yeah. And the whole, let's touch on that vacation thing, because there's a couple things that happen on vacation, right? I'm sure you've had clients, LeAura, like I've had so many clients over the years that say, I go to Paris and I eat croissants and I don't gain any weight, right? What happens on vacation? We relax, our cortisol comes down, and I can pretty much eat what I want on vacation and not gain more than 2 to 3 pounds.
Totally.
But also, I feel like you should give yourself permission, to the extent that you physically can. Honor your allergies, certainly, but I feel like cheats, I don't even like to call them cheats, indulgences, pleasure meals, like that's a part of vacation. A good friend of mine just came back from Italy, and her daughter was like, why are you not eating pasta? You are in Italy.
Yeah.
She was like, you're right. And she said, I didn't even get on the scale. I just enjoyed myself. And like, we all can fall into that trap, but you don't have to. I find permissiveness and just really taking pleasure in each bite, you don't necessarily pig out or overdo it. And if you do, your body does reset itself. Your appetite regulates itself when you come back. So
absolutely. No, I totally agree. I tend to lose weight on vacation too, enjoying meals out, which really teaches me then also how I can eat back home. And that's still, once you get into eating healthy though, in general, you don't want to overindulge anyway, because you feel crappy and you don't want to feel crappy the next day. And so when you have two things side by side, a delicious, healthy, balanced meal versus, I don't know, the chocolate sundae or the fried foods, all of that's good in context on occasion. But so often, like for instance, more and more, when our family if we go to the movie, it used to always be popcorn. It's like it went hand in hand when I grew up. Movie and popcorn is like was always hand in hand, until I started realizing that I felt so bad afterwards, it wasn't worth it. And now I don't even miss it.
Exactly. But the other thing is on vacation too, I feel like you making a conscious choice, if you're a dessert person versus a booze person, that makes a difference too. Like I'll always have one or the other. I rarely have both, because that's what makes me feel crappy. I can have some dessert or I can have some booze, but having both, I'm like blown out to the moon the next day, and that's not worth it either.
So now I don't actually drink, and so I don't have that temptation, but I definitely have the sweet temptation. So what is it? Is it that alcohol has a lot of sugar content? Is that where that becomes like a double whammy, or is it just the extra burden on the system between the alcohol and the sugar, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, both are super pro-inflammatory. Alcohol and sugar really put the pause on any fat burning you're doing. So I'd say get a workout in before your dinner, if possible. Go for a long walk, so you're really sensitizing your cells to insulin, and then go have your indulgence meal after. But also, a lot of people have, leaky gut. Your gut membrane becomes semi-permeable, and undigested food passes back and forth. And we have a lot of candida or yeast overgrowth. And so alcohol fuels yeast overgrowth, and sugar fuels yeast overgrowth. So you're really going to bake a loaf of bread in your gut. It's something I still struggle with. Believe me, my practitioners do not like when I drink alcohol, but that is very tough for me to give up. So
me too. My daughter and I both have to wrestle with that. And I want to get back to that in a second. But first, let me you were along the lines of the things that you can have on vacation or just not obsessing on your site. A little quip is musings on macronutrients, the joy of eating chocolate cake and living life in balance. And then pleasure is my favorite nutrient. And my mission is to bring joy and sensuality into your eating and your life for good. Could you expand on that a little?
Yeah. And really, I can't even take credit for pleasure is my favorite nutrient, because Robert Crayon, my first mentor, really taught me that. And, I've never been good on restrictive diets. I've had to go on them to heal my body, but boy, deprivation for me and for many of my clients leads to binging later. I don't do well with the deprivation mindset. Some people are very black and white about their eating, and I am too, to a point, but the more I'm forced into a corner and feeling restricted rather than feeling like, and there's times when I've tried to do that to lose weight, when I was in high school or college, versus like, oh my God, I've got Epstein-Barr. This is a great story. I had to go on a vegan diet right when Cave Women Don't Get Fat came out. I mean, talk about irony, right? So I'm like, great, I'm not sleeping and I have to be on a vegan diet. Are you kidding me? But that was what I had to do to heal. Unfortunately, Epstein-Barr feeds on animal fats. So I had to deprive my body. I didn't do well, and I cried for 3 days. I was like, I just want to eat steak again. So, the difference was it was my choice. I knew I had to heal my body. It sucked, and I had to suck it up. But like you said, I appreciated what I could have. I ended up eating a lot more fruit, which I was like, wow, dates, I haven't had those in years. Or, I made these beautiful vegetable soups and tons of avocados, and I got really creative with vegetables, and I ate a ton of vegetables, and my skin really reflected that. So there were a lot of pluses. And so every one of us has to make that choice between feeling empowered or imprisoned by our choices. And when we have to heal our bodies, That's a great motivator. You know, every day we have a choice, every meal we have a choice of how we're going to feel about it and what we're physically going to put into our bodies.
Yeah, excellent. And there's so many
So,
gems of wisdom in your blog. In fact, as I was going through it today, I've pulled out lots of quotes and quotables
oh, great.
that we're going to put in with the article that,
Oh, great.
yeah, you. And so, I can't wait for people to see some of those, because so much of it really is about things in perspective,
Mhm.
things in perspective,
Mhm.
and I think not making such a big deal about things, not making such a big deal about eating, but just always trending, sort of like, like in the graph, always trending toward better, even if we
Yes.
dip, just always trending toward better.
Yes.
And
And
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
No, just back to like living in the balance and pleasure. You have to put pleasure into your day. Like chocolate, a square of dark chocolate is a non-negotiable for me, or a cocktail a couple times a week. That is my balance. Or if there's French fries, fine, I have a couple French fries. The permissiveness, I'm not saying I binge out on anything, but because the permissiveness prevents the binging, it offsets.
Yeah.
I'm not someone, restriction is a dangerous place for me personally. So that is why I relate, or people relate to me, I relate to them, because I'm never going to try and be perfect. That's a deal breaker. Years ago, I thought like, oh, for my 45th birthday, I want to do a body comp prep. I want to do that. And I wrote about 2 years ago wanting to do that. And over time, I was like, you know what? I actually really don't want that, because I can't handle the level of restriction and discipline required. It's just in a world where, my sleep is just getting consistent and I hate to be on strict diets. Like there's no way I'm eating, chicken breasts and asparagus for weeks on end. I'm just never going to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm cool with that. I'm not, I'm okay with some extra body fat percentages, because I live my life and I don't beat myself up, and I never sit and think. Like if I have a chocolate cake, I don't sit and think about it after. I just think, okay, I won't eat cake tomorrow. It doesn't really,
Yeah.
there's no more chatter about it. Whereas there used to be a lot of chatter when I was restricting. It was just all I wanted to do is eat the chocolate cake. If it's available, it's not so sexy anymore. So I have like a whole shelf of chocolate in my pantry. We still have candy from Halloween in our house. Like we just don't, almost a year later, we just don't do it because it's there all the time.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you a question about your profession, for instance, as a nutritionist.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the more common misconceptions people have about what it is you do or do coach about? In other words, because you're a nutrition background and also know about supplements, took the DFH course, Designs for Health course, which they're basically a great company for supplements, very clean, I think, and high level, high quality.
Yeah.
So what is it that people come to you? Being a nutritionist doesn't necessarily mean that you can diagnose ailments that people have, and yet probably many people ask you about that as well. So just what are some of the misconceptions?
I mean, I think when people come to me, I'm crystal clear about what services people are going to receive when they work with me. So I haven't really found there are misconceptions. If people ask me like for help with a certain test, I certainly will refer them out to a naturopath or a nutritionally oriented physician. But it's interesting because recently I got a query from a mom. She sent me like another nutrition coach's website, and she said, "This is your competition." I said, "I don't have any competition. We all do our own thing. And if somebody wants to sell product A, go for it." Everyone has their tribe following them. As long as we're shifting paradigms, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But I have shifted my practice to, I used to see people just individually. They would get one-off sessions with me. And now what I do is I started hosting weekend intensive retreats packaged with 8 coaching sessions, because I wasn't serving people, sending them, giving them a diet plan and saying, go on your merry way. It's really integrated into their life, and it applies when we do coaching. It often isn't about the food at all. It's about addressing the underlying emotional piece that's causing, the food is only the symptom of what's causing people to be off base. And I have women coming to me. I spoke with a woman last night who admitted she was in a very unhappy marriage and wanted to leave her husband. Some women have been physically, sexually, emotionally abused. Other women feel super depressed about their bodies. They're not having sex with their husbands. All of these things come into play. And that is what I tackle, is teaching women how to bust the hell through all these roadblocks and take ownership of their lives and feel unapologetic and step into their own power. And the eating is a part of that self-care, but it's not the only thing. We address all, I call it my hierarchy of gorgeous. It's addressing all of the pieces we need to get our needs met and give ourselves permission to put ourselves first, which is a relatively new concept. And I was listening to a podcast recently, and it was with Allie Brown. She does Glambition, and one of her guests said, women are liberated, but they're not empowered. And so my goal is to teach people how to be empowered and, not just say, okay, I'm liberated, I can vote now, I can go to work, now what? Well, now these women are still putting themselves last. They're still not feeling strong in their own roles. They're not being the examples they need to be for their own family. And so that is where I'm like, oh no, this ends right here and right now, and this has to stop. And so that's why I do these. I've changed my whole approach. It's to serve people on a much deeper and more meaningful level than just here's a diet.
So talk a little bit more about that, because you have an event coming up in September, right?
I do. I'm so excited.
Yeah. What will people, where is it? What is the structure like? Anything you want to say about it?
Yes, it's up in the Norwalk area in Connecticut. It's half an hour from the Westchester Airport, and it is a high impact experiential weekend where people come and we clarify all of their goals, not just their eating goals, but their life goals. And we really spend time addressing each person's goal. We do workouts together to boost your power and your own ability to even see your own ability and your own strength. We do meditations together. We sit by the water. We cook together. We drink together. We do, a lot of work, both emotional, physical, spiritual, and mental. And so it's exercises and drills and connecting for 2.5 days. It's a Thursday, Friday, and half day Saturday. So you're done by noon Saturday, so you can go home, have the rest of the weekend with your family. But they're really transformative and they're changing lives. And the beauty is that women, once we're together sharing space, we boost oxytocin, we connect, and we feel supportive, and we have this incredible network. And I do this myself. I have a business coach, and I seclude myself for a weekend with entrepreneurs, because you need to get out of your home. You need to get away from your tasks and your family, no matter how wonderful they are, or maybe you need to focus solely on yourself. So the weekend is designed to really give yourself a lot of self-love and a lot of structure. And then my coaching starts, some people start coaching before the event. Some people are going to continue it after the event. So it just depends.
It is so important. It's like in the journey of life, we all need the mountaintop experience and a regular to identify our journey and if we're on track.
Yeah. And the thing is about any coaching is no one can do the work for you. And you really have to do it. Not only do you have to step up and do it for yourself, but you have to invest in yourself. And it's not just about, the cost, like, oh my God, I'm paying all this money. No, it's the absolute unequivocal results you're going to get. And when you invest in that money, you invest in your experience. If somebody pays you, a very nominal amount for a service, they're going to invest a very nominal amount. And that's my concern that's why I'm really not great with online programs. I've done a couple, but I don't think I'm changing lives that way. And, somebody can get a 30-day program from me. And I think it's so helpful. It ignites the spark and it's a stepping stone. I don't think it's the game changer. That anything live, authentic, someone calling you out on your own bullshit and getting you to stand in your own truth and peeling away those layers, that has to be done with live human contact. There is no substitute for it.
I agree completely. As you were talking, when I was bringing so many things to mind, including that many of the people do the online courses because they can leverage time and earn a lot more money for a lot less investment of themselves.
Yeah.
So for you to commit to doing a weekend event takes a whole lot more investment of yourself, because not only are they being there, but you're being there, and you're committing the weekend or to those 3 days of your time away from your family to be in that scenario. And yet you're right. It's sort of like, I don't know if you've ever been to a Tony Robbins event.
I mean, not in person, no, but I've done like Brenda Bouchard and
Brenda Bouchard. And one of the things, I haven't been to Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within, UPW. My daughter have. I've been to his business mastery program, but but I've also I'm one of the strategic interventionists trained through his program, the Robbins Madonna Center. And what got me interested in it was how quickly he was able to get results, because I'm really all about being as efficient as possible and getting the most results in the least amount of time. And in actually getting into the training, the trainers and the master coaches there didn't quite get always the same results. And what I realized is that he got those results after the people had been with him in that environment, setting the stage and essentially changing their cellular structure for that period of time. And so back to the in-person program. We absolutely cannot change our state in our sane environment without heroic efforts on our own.
That's right. And when people who I speak to say, I don't have the time, like, well, again, not only can no one do the work for you, but what are you willing to put in to get the results? We've just spent half an hour on the phone with you crying, saying, I feel fat. I can't get my life together. My marriage stinks. I'm always screaming at my kids. Like, if you don't make the time now, you're going to pay a hell of a lot later.
Yeah, hell of a lot.
And it's amazing. My job is to really hold up the mirror and get people to take ownership of their truths. And those are the clients and the action takers who succeed. And for people who show up and do the work 100% of the time, my program will get you results for 100% of those times.
Right. Anything worthwhile is never easy, No.
I mean, my own coach has torn me down and built me up, and it's painful for me too, but I'm not afraid of the struggle. What I'm afraid of is staying stuck where I'm at. And so it's like, you know what? I'll be damned if I can't be a provider for my family. I'll be damned if I have to sit and let people passively sabotage their own efforts. I refuse to accept mediocrity as my life. It can't, like the pain of, what is it? The Anais Nin quote where it's, the pain of remaining a flower bud was far greater than that of opening up like a flower. Yeah. I'm paraphrasing, right? That when the pain of staying stuck where you're at is greater than the pain of where you want to be, or even the fear of letting go of old behaviors, that's when people move. The greater the pain, the faster the action.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of being stuck, one of the biggest things working in the physical fitness realm or industry, and as well as healing my own ailments through fitness. And I'm a certified trainer, but I don't actively train. That wasn't my goal. My goal was just originally to heal myself and to then create products that would help others, because once you realize the power of fitness in your own life, to basically take back ownership over yourself and your body and your energy system. And what happens is when that movement starts at the physical level and you begin to shift. So shifting mindset begins with shifting the body, just movement, changing physiology, changing our state at any moment, just changing our state. We can do that through physical movement. Then the other things can begin to shift. So if we're stuck in sort of like, it's not working, to go and do a vigorous walk or bike ride, or like you did this morning, nature walk, that just shifts perspectives. And it's so easy to do. it's so much easier than lamenting and complaining and, stressing over the
Yes.
moment, but we typically forget.
Well, and also the beauty of movement is it's an actionable event that you can start immediately when you can't. Sometimes when we're in the moment of so much pain or emotional conflict, it can be really hard to give words to what we're feeling, or sometimes for me, it takes me like a day or two to process an emotional event and really break it down and deconstruct and think about everything that's happened. But we all know, like, oh, something's not resting easy with me, or we're up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking about things. The movement is a great way to not only get your brain neurons and your neurotransmitters happy and talking to each other and alleviating your stress, but it also will help you process out, the emotional piece. But the physical piece, I think, always should come first.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
agree with you. And just, it's a beautiful way for your body to wake up in the morning and just set the tone for your day.
Yeah. Question about nutrition and your clients and coaching. What are there some commonalities that you find are ailing most people nutritionally? Is there like three? Is there kind of, or is it just all across the board?
I mean, the gut is really the epicenter. The gut is the second brain, and most of us are so stressed. We're not even digesting our food or absorbing our nutrients. Autoimmune conditions, that's like the big, fat, juicy vein running through my practice. But again, autoimmune conditions, right? I mean, you look at something like the thyroid. A lot of women I've worked with who have autoimmune Hashimoto's, thyroiditis, um, have difficulty finding their voice. They have difficulty emotionally connecting to their words and their feelings and being able to emote those feelings. And stress is a major trigger that can turn the genes on or off. Stress and trauma turn the genes on or off for wellness. So for autoimmune conditions, a lot of times there's an emotional trigger. That's why I address the emotional piece, or it's unresolved issues. And so, so what did I say? Gut issues, autoimmune, skin conditions. I get a lot of acne, but hormones is the other thing. And again, hormones are stress driven so much of the time, and there was a great study I read in the New York Times probably about 10 to 15 years ago, and it talked about how yoga can reverse menopausal symptoms. Well, why? Is it because tree pose balances all your estrogen and progesterone? No, it's because you're managing your stress and you're in touch with your chakras and you're releasing pent up emotions. So
Breathing deeply.
Breathing deeply. I mean, you don't even have to do yoga. You can walk. Lifting weights balances hormones and helps with menopausal symptoms as well. So at the core piece of the core underlying foundation of all of these illnesses is stress, stress management, and sleep. It's like if everyone slept and had regular sex with a partner they're attracted to and ate some vegetables every day, we'd be fine,
And moved.
Right? And moved.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Yeah. The exercise. Yeah.
Eat healthy.
We'd be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be perfect, but most people would be a lot better off than they are now.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned thyroid and hormones. So I guess you see a lot of women with menopausal hormonal issues.
I do. And it's a really complicated situation that I tried to keep really simple. And again, I look at the foundations. If someone's on bioidentical hormones, I'll send them to a physician, or if they, want to get acupuncture, do herbs, great. And I can certainly help them detox estrogen or build up testosterone. But I keep it really simple and focus on lifestyle. I focus on healing foods and balancing foods, and everyone's protein and carb ratios are different. And we know in menopause, it's a very insulin resistant time in a woman's life. So, but again, it's also about putting herself first, managing her own care. Menopause occurs at a time when children are often teenagers and parents are aging, and it's a cry for help. I mean, PMS to a lesser degree, but this is like all that rage you feel or irritability. It's your body saying, hey, lady, clean up your house of emotional health. Stop picking up the toys and start picking up dumbbells and a bottle of primrose oil.
I love that. Another quotable.
Oh my God. But and I say this not even to, I mean, this has been more of a serious interview, but you really have to pay attention to your house of health, and people only pay attention to it when it's on fire and they just throw a cup of water on it. But you need to not let that house go on fire to begin with.
Yes, definitely.
You've got to fireproof yourself and your health, really.
Right. So you mentioned earlier leaky gut mobility. That's connected to candida and autoimmune as well.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So, and you're wrestling with your own. I am as well. So, so many people are. I think let me actually step back for a second, because this is one of the things I was thinking about prior to our connecting when I'm anticipating the conversation, and that is, if I get frustrated watching things on TV or seeing how people eat, or even, like the foods that are sold that no one should be eating, I can imagine how a nutritionist would feel. Or if I get frustrated at doctors' advice, like misadvice, the opposite of what someone should be doing is what they're advised to do, for instance, kind of thing. It's very frustrating to recognize that there's so much information out there, but there's not a lot of it, that so much of it is not being, it's not commonly known.
Right.
So anyway, so what is your take in general? I mean, from packaged foods that have no nutrients, or that say they have nutrients in the label, but it doesn't have prana because it's not a live food, and it's so processed that how can it have anything in it? So in your nutritional education, do you study and go into the depth of the quality of food?
I mean, again, simple, right? There's nice to know and there's need to know. It's nice to know that high fructose corn syrup causes dyslipidemia and will shut down your liver. What you need to know is that it's going to make you fat if you eat too much of it. It's nice to know about all the chemicals in bread that Subway is removing from their sandwiches. What you need to know is it's probably not a good idea to eat at Subway anyway. So, or Panera, So what I really stick to are the basics. I don't necessarily even start. If a client's really new, again, I meet people where they're at. And I'm really about, instead of standing and shouting at the rooftops, like you should be energetically, for me, like the government should not be ascribing to the food guide pyramid. And I've learned to just kind of lead by example and say, hey, this is what I do. This is what keeps me healthy. And I find that that's a much nicer approach. It's far less energetically draining for me. But so if a client is totally new, and I do home visits for my local clients, and I'll go into their pantries and say, okay, let's make a better substitute, or why don't you start adding in greens first? Start adding in protein at meals. And then things naturally displace. Then my clients sort of get it without having to hear the word no. I'm cognizant of the word no because of the psychological damage it's done to me over the years. So I try to really say, this would be a better choice for you, or start paying attention to how you feel energetically, right? Jade and Jill are big on hunger, energy, cravings. Pay attention to that. Your energy through the roof. Are you jumping out of bed in the morning because you're having greens every morning? Or are you lethargic at 4 p.m. because you've had a mochaccino and a bagel for breakfast? So translating the food and demystifying it into just amazing energy with prana, live foods, it doesn't feel so scary and overwhelming. It makes it more empowering. Like, well, I could have that, but if I do, I'm going to feel crappy at 4 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, pardon me.
Yeah.
And that, when you can put the responsibility and ownership into your client's hands, then you're an effective practitioner. Definitely. You just hand someone, like as I did for so many years in my career, you just hand them a diet. There's no accountability whatsoever. And people will come to me, I need a plan. No, that's complete bullshit. You don't need a plan. Mm-hmm. What you do need is to distinguish between your mouth and a vacuum. That's what you need to distinguish. And I say this with love, but like tough love. So it's not to sound arrogant and say, okay, but I'd much rather say, hey, why don't you choose from these proteins? And why don't you choose like lots of these vegetables? And why don't you have some of these good fats?
Yeah.
And just simple, simple, simple. Often I won't even talk about high fructose corn syrup or anything. I'll just say, these are the lists of foods, try kind of selecting from these half the time or 3/4 of the time. Because any shift is so damn powerful.
That's great. Yeah, that's so much wisdom in that. Again, I'm so inspired that you have so much wisdom and you're
it's very simple. It's very simple. Like no one, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I remember when I was in college, right? A very close friend of mine, she became a physician and was super, super smart in medical school. And I said, I could give a crap about the Krebs cycle. I said, I'm not going to need this in real life. She said, are you kidding? Nutrition is all biochemistry. I said, it's really not. Like a bagel has nothing to do with your, teaching someone whether or not they need to eat a bagel or not, or they're carb sensitive. More information is more overwhelming and shuts people down. Their eyes just glaze over.
Yeah.
But if I say at dinner, you know what, eat a steak, some broccoli, and a sweet potato, they don't need to know that I'm thinking about their macronutrients and I'm thinking about their trace minerals and their bone density. They don't need to know that. They need to know I'm going to the store now. But my clients call me like, I'm at the health food store. What do I buy? What vitamins do I buy? I'm like, this. It's really simple. And that is why, education more is not necessarily better. And there are people far less educated than me who are crushing it because they keep their message so simple. I've tripped over my own feet with my messaging for so many years that I've just dialed it back and not dumbed it down, but just keep it ridiculously simple. And people connect to that.
That's such good information again, because, really it's, you've got this vast, picture a funnel of information, and then your job is to let it funnel into a usable format for the average person. Because so that makes so much sense. I think we're part of, so there are two messages in that. One side is it's more important now than ever for us to become more in tune with our own bodies, and also to physician heal thyself in a way by tuning in, using our own common sense, which is why I love that you don't give a meal plan. Because the other thing that you're also saying is choose this, and you're beginning to train their thinking into the right kind of choices simply. And so a lot of times, for instance, in coaching, if someone asks me, what should I do about this? Then I would often say back, what do you think? Or if a friend was coming to you advice and they had this issue, repeat the issue, what would be your advice to them? And I think more often than not, people have their own wisdom, but they've forgotten because they've gotten out of touch with using it, because we're trained to seek the experts to tell us what to do.
Brilliant. That's exactly it. And the experts, often screw us up far more because, they don't know your own body the way you do. And it's all done with love, but they don't know your body the way you do. Only you're an expert on your own body. Yeah,
like your friend at medical, or it's what did you say that? Was she in medical school? She was. Yeah. So exactly. It's like you get into all this complication, complexity, which can be fascinating, but then that also takes us away from, just kind of tuning into common sense, and sensitivity, which obviously most practitioners cannot do. I mean, you have the luxury as a coach of spending more time with people too, and tuning into their story in a deeper level than the 15 minutes the doctor has to spend with you. And by the way, that doctor probably hasn't had the nutritional education that you've had, for instance. And it's not about prevention. It's not about how does the machine run. It's about how to fix it when it gets broken, in that case, in the traditional medical cycles. But because I know that, for instance, I did a lot of allergy tests, like 3 or 4 different kinds of allergy tests. None of them showed that I was allergic to soy. And yet I discovered it on my own. I discovered it when I used a soy-based body scrub. And I broke out from neck to It's like, okay, so these problems I've been having with the what is it, the hypodermographia, the itching with the skin, like you scratch, it raises and welts, and you start reacting to every little thing, and getting welts and rashes and all that, and psoriasis, and all of that was caused by the soy and it didn't come out in the allergy test. And so, even science, is still an evolving mechanism. And so we just have to, if that's not working, if what the doctors or professionals are telling us is not working, then we keep testing for ourselves.
Exactly. And, the thing is too, is a lot of medicine also is overly complicated for people too. And again, we can simplify everything. Like a doctor has all this amazing training so they know what drugs to give you and they know what's going to interact. But again, if doctors kept the messaging really simple and just said, eat more of this, eat less of that, eat more vegetables.
Yeah.
Move your body, lift heavy weights, have sex with your partner, like that alone would cure 90% of our problems.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And again, they're not, because modern medicine is amazing and it saves so many lives.
It does.
But I think it's like, so it's no one thing, it's not all right and all wrong.
No, it's not all right or wrong at all. But in your case, LeAura, like with your allergies, right? Like you do have to be your own detective. You are alone. And that is the gift to me of our medical system, which is becoming more and more socialized, is you really do have to take matters into your own hands. And I think now people are understanding that. I mean, you see the radical growth of health coaches on the market and people spending, billions of dollars in this country per annum on more alternative treatments. So people see, we have to meet in the middle. To me, the best doctors are the ones that integrate nutrition with medicine. One of my favorite colleagues, my dear friend, Mark Houston, he's an he's an integrative cardiologist. And so he'll put people on Lipitor and then he adds in CoQ10 and carnitine and fish oils and taurine and magnesium, and he balances everything out. And it's like, great. And that to me, I think is where, if we can meet in the middle, if doctors can learn more about nutrition, that's where we'll really get the best results long-term and decrease our need for drugs.
Definitely. Do you use blood tests in your coaching?
Some, if necessary, some I do, especially if I want to get like a red blood cell magnesium or zinc, or I want to check someone's vitamin D, I want to check their autoimmune antibodies. Like I recently diagnosed someone with celiac, just getting, a gluten antibody panel. Very simple, but I really keep my testing very simple because like you said, testing doesn't often show things. I have a client I've been treating severe constipation. I've been telling her for almost a year, you better get your parasites checked. That's what's that could be causing your constipation. And she had to get her appendix out, emergency appendectomy, which we now know the appendix hosts a ton of beneficial bacteria. So I was like, great. So her whole bacterial balance is really off now. She said, I'm just going to go get scoped and I probably just need to take Miralax. And I was like, dude, leave no stone unturned. I said, you're like 26 years old. You're going to spend the rest of your life on drugs. That's going to be a Band-Aid, not a solution. So, you have to explore every option. So do I do testing? Sometimes I do. I don't always find it's conclusive. If I do testing, I'm really careful about what doctors I would send a patient to even get the testing. Testing to me, there are nutritionists that work a lot with testing. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. I try to really take the emotional piece into account before anything else.
That sounds good. Yeah, that sounds excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Esther, you've written, is it 5 books?
4. I will start a 5th at some point.
But I was going to ask you, are you already working on it mentally then?
I'm manifesting it. I haven't even written it down. I really want to spend a lot of time with clients and getting these experiential weekends under my belt with clients. And that will fuel the next book. That will fuel the whole structure and the whole outline. And I think that will be the perfect complement. Eat, Drink, and Be Gorgeous was very much my opus. The whole mantra was your body may be a temple, but who says it can't be a nightclub?
Yeah.
And I've kind of gone full circle, right? I evolved and got more into higher protein and heavy lifting and hormonal balance. And then the paleo diet for women to further balance hormones and address those pesky autoimmune conditions. But again, my books became a bit more restrictive and they needed to be, but I really want to come full circle and bring back the emotional piece and the fun piece and just get us really connected emotionally to our bodies, because that's the missing piece in my books. You always learn it's a path. And
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a journey and it's an evolution, so that
yeah,
you're at that place. And so that's the book to write when you're at that place.
yeah.
And I think that it's really actually great to write a few more smaller books, niche down to the topic at hand, so it's okay that they're narrow on specific things, because there's a place for each one of those. And then it takes less time to get the book published, to get it to market, to get it in the hands of people who it can help.
Oh, you would think it's like 2 years from writing to publication.
Even if it's smaller.
It is not. I'm going to just plug in my computer. It's never fast. Unless you self-publish, it's never fast. But, I have such a special agent, and we go with traditional publishers. So, you know what? For me, it works. It's not for everyone, but I'm so grateful that I even had my foot in the door, and it's led to a whole beautiful career that I am just blessed and grateful for.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, so right now you're most excited about the upcoming event in September.
Yeah.
So in your weekend, how often are you doing those?
I'm going to do them once a month through September, October, November. I'll probably take December off for the holidays, January restart. So
okay.
Yeah, my next goal is to have my next summer, I want to have one in Italy.
Ah, very nice.
That is the next goal.
Very nice. Are you Italian background then?
Not at all. I just love it.
Okay, good. Well, we'll put the dates and the links to, so is it just, I'll send the links to your website. I know you said on your site that they can email you if they're interested.
Yes.
That's the best way. Okay.
Yes,
So
yes. People can
address.
email me. They can connect to me. My website has all my social media handles, so just connect to me that way.
Okay, estherblum.com.
estherblum.com, and I usually answer everything I'm sent. I apologize if it's not timely, but I do my best.
Okay, awesome, excellent. Well, thanks so much for sharing your lovely self, and we look forward to keeping up with you and what's going on.
Thanks, LeAura. Thanks for having me.
Sure, bye-bye.